Hey, it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony with you here today. Much love going out to the beautiful empowered harmonizers. And we are zooming in and focusing in on a great viewer question. And even though the answers have been addressed in a number of the previous videos, which I recommend you watch, but her question was, how do you get into a healthy relationship after you have been with a toxic, damaging individual? Perhaps they have engaged in emotional neglect, physical abuse, emotional manipulation, gaslighting, brainwashing, everything that is involved when you get into a relationship with a malignant narcissist or a psychopath. And this can be very difficult to emerge from, even if it's a spouse or it's a family member or someone who you dated for a number of years. It can be quite difficult. And the number one name of the game is to realize that what you felt during that relationship should not be repeated. You should not engage in what Pete Walker states as repetition compulsion. If you have had a history of similar types of relationships where again and again and again they say it's like the same relationship with a new face or a new body. In other words, you keep attracting the same types of abusers. They're not available to you emotionally. They are closed off to you emotionally. They are manipulative. They end up, brainwashing you or engaging in pathological lies, cheating behind you, not being loyal. See how this pattern repeats. And if it has repeated in your life, you can be guaranteed and assured that there is a template or an image or a role model that you have perpetuated through time, which is unhealthy, which means in your mind's eye, as we say, or in your vision of the ideal relationship, you are still formatting that pattern on an unhealthy relationship. In other words, where it's wrought with stress, it's wrought with uncertainty, it's wrought with fighting, it's wrought with paranoia, hypervigilance, high-risk behaviors. It is unrealistic. And as you mature and grow older, it's very important to call it what it is. To say, hey, this is no longer what I want. It's time for me to grow up and grow out of this. It is no longer cool to be fighting at the bar when you're in your late 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. It is no longer cool to be yelling and screaming and calling the police. It's no longer cool to be the bad boy or bad girl. It's no longer healthy to be on paranoid rants for days, weekends, or months at a time, where you are trying to always check somebody's phone, check where they're looking, check where they're going. I mean, after a while, it becomes like you're living a double and triple life. You can't live your own life or be focused. And it's because you're so admired, you're so deep in the thralls of trying to get it straightened out that you can't get your head above water. And so it's very important then to realize that you need or are missing a healthy template for a relationship. In other words, in your heart of hearts, in your mind's eye, you are missing a healthy role model for functional relationships. And if you have been, have a history of emotional neglect or child abuse or sexual abuse in your past, you can be fairly well guaranteed that you're going to attract a similar unhealthy relationship in your life until you change it. The good thing about the dysfunction is it has been learned. So knowing that, it can be unlearned or new learning can take place to overwrite the unhealthy conditioning, the unhealthy programming, meaning what you are set up to be attracted to, so that you don't commit this repetition compulsion where you're constantly still attracted to the types of individuals. In fact, you can, they don't even have to say a word and you might be attracted to them, but there's a certain aura, a certain energy which you are attracted to, which replicates or is congruent or is an energetic match to the abuser of your past. So it's like here it comes again. I'm ready to fix it this time. And so you keep repeating and entering into these dysfunctional relationships, thinking subconsciously. You don't say, hey, I'm really going to get it right with Sylvia this time. Now I'm going to get it right. It just is it is a subconscious mechanism of a pattern, because the way the subconscious mind works, it tends to like to repeat patterns, and also it tends to go and be attracted to what is familiar and what you have an image of. It's called subconscious priming. So you must then open your eyes to other sorts of feelings and know that this future relationship is not going to feel the same. It's going to feel like you're more secure. You're more anchored within yourself rather than being anchored in the past. Your previous hurt relationships will not spill over and impact your new relationships, because they're already, resolved. They're already worked through. You've already learned the lessons. So that's why I tell you it is so important in your recovery journal to have a section called Lessons Learned. This is perhaps going to be one of the most valuable books or notebooks that you ever earned, which are the ones that contain your lessons learned. In other words, your never again is now statements. I have learned, not to abandon my own boundaries. I have learned not to reduce my standards. I have learned to stand up for myself. I have learned to rise. I have learned what healthy and unhealthy people look like, and they are two very separate and distinct types of people and categories, and I have learned to stop immersing myself with the unhealthy. I have learned that guilt has held me back. I have learned that shame has held me back. I have learned that I am unlovable, and now I'm going to learn and know with certainty that I am lovable. These are the same similar types of lessons that you need to write down, and you need to have your lessons learned, because if you don't learn them, you are doomed to repeat them. So very important is to have a healthy role model for future relationships. And if you are in a relationship, or in a family rather, where you did not have healthy role models, then chances are you have a deficit, you have a need in this area. So you need to kind of get a glimpse and observe what healthy relationships look like. Who are the people who are happily married? 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years. Who are the people that you look up to and respect? What really pulls at your heartstrings? How would you like it to be? What qualities would they have? What qualities, furthermore, would you need to have to be able to have that in your life? In other words, what is going to be required of you? How can you be accountable to you so you can actually have that? It is possible. You have to dream of it first, and then the dream has to get set into motion. As I say before, Martin Luther King, I have a dream. You can just say those words, and don't you start to feel the butterflies in your stomach? Don't you feel your fingers start to tingle when you say those words? I get the goosebumps just even saying it now. The look in his eyes, the tone of his voice, the way he's holding his shoulders, the way his voice is projecting, that man is